Hi folks, this is the first of a couple of short videos about how to use some of the online resources to manage things like references and so on. So the first one I'm going to show you is MyEndNote, and this is a free online service available in the cloud. You don't need to download a program to do this. You will need to download a small plugin for Word to actually make it work from that point of view. So first thing you need to do is go to MyEndNoteWeb.com, as you can see up at the top, and if you don't have an account you'll have to create an account, obviously, so that's not a long job for you. So I'm just going to log in now and we can have a look at this. So because I've been using this before, I've already got a lot of references and stuff built in. So I'll show you how you actually work with them. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to have to do something called collect, which is when you pull references down from the internet. Now it's quite possible that you can type in the references as well, or you can even import them. But to be honest, it is much more efficient if you can actually collect them directly via an online search. Okay? So I'm going to collect and then I'm going to hit online search. And you'll see it gives me an option to pick my database or library collection. Now because I've already done select favorites, I've added DIT's library, which is in the list, as well as PubMed into the favorites. Okay? So I've got those added in already, which means that I don't have a big huge list of 200 different options. I just have the two ones that I'm mainly interested in. So let's do PubMed because that's what we're interested in most cases when we're looking at references. So if I hit connect now, having selected PubMed, and LMN is the National Library of Medicine in case you're wondering. If I hit connect, what it's done now is MyEndNoteWeb has now connected magically through the interwebs to PubMed. So now I can search for something within PubMed. Okay, so I can put in brain cholesterol. Now it's listed as any field, okay, and that's probably the best place to leave it as you're starting off. Now I also want to only have things from a particular year, so I can put in 2015. And because I've got the AND function, it will look for brain cholesterol in 2015. And the two options at the bottom are retrieve all records or select a range of records. Now, you may want to hit retrieve all records, but if you have something very broad like cancer that's going to get you 600,000 hits, retrieve all records is not great, to be honest, because you'll have so many it'll become unwieldy. So then you might need to tailor it a little bit more to what you want specifically, so you can dial it down to maybe the first 20 hits or the first 50 or so on. So let's hit search on this one and see what happens. So it's now connected to it, and you can see that I'm getting 59 results. And if you look at this series of brackets, it's very similar to what we saw when we actually looked at how to phrase search terms and how to design a search strategy. So now I've got a lot of different results here, and let's just take the first one. So I'm ticking that one, and what I can do now is I can add this to a particular group. So what a group is, it's almost like a folder of related work. So I'm going to make a new group, okay, just for this one, and I'm going to call it training. So now I have a training group. Okay, so you can see that it's got a little tick mark, okay, to show that it's been copied. And over on the left hand side where it lists my groups, you see I have now a training group. So if I click on training, I now have a reference in it. Now the thing about the groups is that you can have a paper in your reference list. You'll see it says all my references here, that's 182. And I can have one that's added to training, added to cholesterol, added to any number of different groups, but all it does is it puts a reference in the group and connects it to a link into your My References. So let's go and I'll just pick a few more references randomly just to add them in. Okay, so we'll just pick a couple of ones, and I'm literally just picking 3 or 4 randomly just so we'll have something to look at, and I'll add them to training. So now in training we've got 4 different references or different papers, and now we actually have something that we can work with. You'll see there's a few other options. Okay, you can share groups, okay, if you want to. So as well as sharing papers between groups, you can also share groups between people. You can add attachments, so if you happen to have a full copy of that paper, you can attach a file to it. And if you have access to it through whatever library, you can link to it directly. So if I click on Go to URL, it will bring me to that link in PubMed. There is an article linker function which might work, but we'll have a go now and see if it works. And what it's trying to do is connect to another resource within the web. I'll let that run in the background because it might take a minute or two to kick in. And then the last one is basically if there's any attachment to it as figures. So you might have a series of figures attached to that particular paper. So now you've got a bunch of papers that you can do something with. Okay. Now there are other ways to collect your papers. You can just put in a new reference manually, as I said. That can take quite a while to do, but here you have a big list of different things. All right, different types of papers, whether it's a thesis, a web page, some artwork, you know, it's very, very broad. But there's actually a really nice way based on a plugin, okay, and this is an EndNote plugin. So if I'm using Chrome and I'm using that for all of them, but it works the same if you're going to use it for Firefox. So what we basically can do now is if we go to PubMed, okay, so I'm hitting pubmed.gov and I'm going to PubMed. And I will put in brain cholesterol again, and we'll get a list of papers. So you're in PubMed now, but I have my nice little EndNote plugin. So I am going to pick the second paper down. And now I'm going to hit my EndNote plugin. And what that will do is, it will strip out all of the information, and it's asking me to save to MyEndNoteWeb, so you have to be logged in. You'll see it's a journal article. It's giving all the authors formatted already. It has the abstract. It has all the various bits and pieces. Okay. So I can pick which group. I'll save it into my training group, and I'll save. And now that entire reference has been automatically captured and sent into MyEndNoteWeb. So we can have a look at that to see where it ended up. So let's go back to Organize now, where I can see my different groups. And if you look at training, where are we? My references. If we look at training, you'll see now I've got that last paper added in as well. Okay, so here you can see it at the end, the one from Kim. And that has all the details. In Organize, just to highlight what I mentioned earlier on about this sharing, I can choose to share an email address with that. So I can share it with someone else. So if you had 2 people working in breast cancer and you felt like cooperating rather than competing, you could share your references, which can be actually very, very useful as a learning tool as well. So here we have a couple of different ways to find your material. Okay, we can collect using an online search. Which means we pick the database we're interested in, and then we hit connect. And that allows us to search via the MyEndNote interface in different places. The other approach is to use the plugin together with PubMed, and that will allow you to capture different papers. And it's also worth pointing out as well that if you're using the plugin, you can select multiple references within PubMed, and you can save multiple ones in one go. So if you pick 10 or 12 different ones, they don't always have to be in one list. you can push all of those directly into MyEndNoteWeb in one go. The downfall of looking in PubMed is you can search for books. So if we want to look for a book, the library is obviously a good starting point. It's not going to have every book in the world in it, but let's just give you an example. An example of finding a biochemistry book. So just to find a book, okay? So I've put in biochemistry in Leninger, and it's not finding anything, which is weird. I've obviously misspelled something. So as you can see now, we get a big bunch of hits from the library web page. So if you take one of these and copy it to your group, it will copy it, but this time it's adding it as a book, which is a different reference format. Okay, so this works for a lot of the standard ones. Obviously, things like emails or websites or audiovisual material like YouTube and things like that will have a different requirement. Okay. Now, the other thing that you're probably very interested in is how do I get things from here and put it into Word? Okay, and that's using the Format tab. Okay, so you want the Cite While You Write plugin. Now, what that is basically a little plugin which means Word is able to talk to MyEndNoteWeb. Okay? So I'm going to go to installation and instructions, and that'll tell you what you need to do. So I'm going to use the Cite While You Write plugin. I can download it, install it, and that basically is pretty much what I need to do. So download the Windows one, and you can see it's, well, you can see on the screen, but I'll pull it up and you can see it's downloading it now. And once that's downloaded, then we can actually build it into Word, and then we can use Word to do the citations and referencing and bibliography. So I've downloaded that now, and I've restarted Word, and when I restart Word, you'll see I now have an EndNote add-in. So what it's doing now is it's asking me to log in to my MyEndNoteWeb. And once I do that, it will now talk to MyEndNoteWeb via Word. So I can access those references via Word, and then I can actually use them. Okay, so now it's ready to go. So you can see I've got a couple of different options here. I can pick the style guide I want. There's quite a few, or I can pick a different style guide, which gives me anything I want. So I'm going to pick, I'll find Harvard, H, and I'll pick Harvard from the DIT Faculty of Business just because it's DIT. So I'm going to type in some text. So here's some text that I want to reference. Now, what I'm going to do now is create an in-text citation. Okay, so I pick the point at which I want to include my citation, and now I need to pick which citation I want. So I hit Insert Citation. Now, what this window does is allows me to search MyEndNoteWeb. So if you remember, we had an author called Kim. So let's see if we can find a paper from Kim. So the paper from Kim was 2015. You can see the bottom window, I can get the abstract, so I can read it and make sure I have the right one. And once I've picked that paper, I can hit Insert. And now what it's done is that it's added in that reference, and you'll see it's slightly grayed, and that means it has some extra data associated with it. So now that reference is added in, and you can also see it's automatically created a bibliography at the end. And I'll just put a title on that just so we can see what we're doing. So I'll put in a few little extra bits of text as well, just so we'll have a bit more to play with. So here you have a couple of different bits and pieces. So now what I will do is, after the word text, I want to put in a couple of citations now. So I can search for anything I want, but let's say I will take Sterelny, which is a book, and I'll take Ponogoti, which is a journal article. So I'm holding down the Control key and picking more than one paper. So now when I hit insert, it will actually put in all of those extra ones. So you can see it's got Kumar et al., Pognotti and Sterelny. It's got 3 different ones added in. Okay? And they automatically appear in alphabetical order in my reference list. Now, here's where it gets very, very useful. If I want to put in an extra one, so let's say I want to add in an extra paper where Kim is, I can go to Insert Citations, and I'll pick Mickelson this time, and I hit Insert. And automatically, the reference list will be re-alphabetized to make sure it makes sense. Now it's not really showing you the power of this, so we're going to need to pick a journal citation format which uses numbers. Okay? And that really will show you the power of this. And I just need to go and grab one. I think we have cell in here somewhere. Yeah. So here you go. Here we have a 1, 2, and then a 3 to 5. Okay? Now, if I add in another citation, okay, at the point here it's 1 to 3. So remember, it was 1 to 3, it was 1, 2, and then 3 to 5. By adding in one extra, it's automatically updated it and updated the numbers and made sure they're all consistent. So this will save you a huge amount of work because it'll automatically reorder them as you need them to. Okay? So you can play around with this. You know, it's not very complicated to use. You need to pick the right citation style, obviously, and there's tons and tons and tons of them. Okay? You'll find any number of them. So here we have one that uses superscripts. When we looked at the Harvard one before, you saw that it uses its author name or author name date, which is different again. So there are a huge variety of these, and you need to stick with the format that you've been given by your instructors as part of your project write-up. So that's the whistle-stop tour of MyEndNoteWeb. What I would strongly suggest you do if you want to get familiar with this is literally just do what I've done. Set up an account, throw in some random text, or take somebody else's abstract even and just put it into Word and go through the process of doing this to get yourself up to speed with it. It is not hugely complicated, but it does depend on you having collected the information in a really good way at the start, i.e. that your reference list is good. So just to remind you about the terminology again, the references are the actual links or the information that allows you to find the paper or the book. The in-text citations are the shorthand version. So if I see Kim et al., I know it's this paper, Kim, and so on, about the peptide derived from desalinated tuna. So the Kim in the text, that citation connects you to a reference. Okay? Try it out, play with it. It doesn't take a huge amount of work to figure out what you need to do. This video has pretty much told you everything you need to do to get this to work. I'll be following this up with how to use Mendeley in a similar format, and that will basically help you go, to the next step in a slightly different way.